Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Max Round Study Podcast. We are in week 2 of ESEA Premier Season 37. We don't have Coy tonight. It's a great loss. Fish is busy. He will be back next week. He is just on schedule, kind of sucks. So today it's just Jeff from Dust 2 US right next to me, and then myself, Jacob Heffman from Freelance Casting, which is apparently an agency now. But in 30 minutes, we'll be covering all of this week's NA CSGO content. So let's get that timer rolling. I've actually been pretty good about remembering that this time around.
Astute viewers may notice that we've recorded the show on a different day of the week for the last 5 weeks, and no, that is not intentional. We just have no form of time management.
We just have very busy lives, and we suck at time management. So it goes together really well. But so I guess we'll open things up this week. We had the second CS Summit Open Qual for the RMR, the North American RMR event. And coming out of that, we had Triumph in Team 1. So I think we had one team that we were really hoping that was going to make it through that didn't. And that team, in fact, was Party Astronauts.
Yeah, honestly, you have RBG, you have RBG, Triumph, Team 1, and what was it? It was Oplano go through, and those are probably all teams that are in better form than Party Astronauts right now. But at the same time, it's one of our domestic local teams that we kind of are all appreciative of, and it would have been nice to see them go through. But obviously, the math just didn't work out for them.
Yeah, seeing them kind of we lost 2 of those North American RMR slots to the Brazilians. So 07, I guess. But
yeah, I guess if you want to commentate on it, they probably were the least, I wouldn't say deserving, but they were the least ready team for the RMR qualifiers on the basis that they had just added 3 new players to their lineup, and they hadn't had. I don't think they did any practice coming into the event, into the qualifiers. So while it sucks that they can't get the first RMR, it's probably they probably just weren't necessarily ready to make it through the qualifier, and the fact that they made it to the final round both times is probably a testament to their just pugging ability.
Yeah, I gotta say, the fact that they were at least able to make it that far, that's a good showing. But of course, you do get those kind of flashbacks of where they were when they were High Coast, with some of those Cash Cup woes / qualifier woes. So, but hey, it's a new team, at least from the perspective of adding 2 different players to that roster. So. Or 2, or is it 2 or 3? You're gonna have to remind me.
3. DJ, 3. Infinite, and Viz.
Yeah.
So
you can't really
ultimately, you change the entire core of the lineup. So you're gonna need some time to get up to speed, even if you've played with DJ and Infinite before.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, good showings from them to at least get to that point. But with that, we do have our matchups for the phase 2 of the qualifier. So there will be 4 teams that will make it out, I believe.
Yes, the 4 teams will advance to the CS Summit 8, and they will join Liquid, Furia, Extremum, and Evil Geniuses. And so, do you want to do the matchups?
Oh, sure. I was just going to say it's interesting that we're seeing Extremum come back to NA to
if you want to talk about teams that come back to NA, we can even talk about the likes of Liquid, Evil Geniuses, Extremum, Godsend, Oplano, even even to a lesser extent Team 1 who have come back from European sabbatical.
It's what region are you really from?
Well, I blame Valve for this a bit because they basically said whatever region you inhabit at the start time of the RMRs is your home region, which is funny in context because we saw all these Brazilian teams basically book Mexican plane tickets the day they realized they could not go through the hellhole that is the CBCS RMR, where you have 20 teams fighting for one spot in the major. And this isn't too different from how it was back when we used to have the NA minors, because you would have, you'd have Luminosity, you'd have Team 1, you'd have the original Furia lineup. You'd even have Immortals or Tempo Storm in the NA minors, but still it's as we've tried to maybe make our region a little bit more nationalistic, it is kind of funny / sad to see that 4 out of 8 spots in our closed qualifier are Brazilian teams.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, at least as far as like CS player population goes, it's honestly kind of surprising to see NA have like more of those slots. You know, it's funny how that dynamic works and how it'll continue
Well,
into the
my
future.
understanding of it is that it's because Valve based the slot allocation based on like what happened at the Star Ladder Major, which is almost a year and a half ago now, and so they said they're going to rebalance how many slots each region gets based on their performance, which I assume is going to be Europe's going to gain slots and NA will just lose slots, but maybe Brazil will gain a second slot. Do you just want to go over the matchups?
Yeah, sure. Let's run on through. So, the first one that we'll be seeing is Extrasalt versus Godsend. Actually, let's stop and kind of talk about them as we go.
Yeah, definitely.
So, first up being Extrasalt and Godsend. Personally, I think Extrasalt blows this one out of the water.
No, I agree completely. Like, they're just gonna shit all over Godsend. I know I was talking to some Brazilians who said like, well, they didn't do good in Europe, but surely they'll do good against NA teams. But I don't think like Taco's Godsend have done like.
No.
I mean, I've always kind of been a hater of this lineup, even though I like a lot of the players on it. I just feel like it doesn't really make sense. I don't really think Taco's like a very good IGL. And I think this is like the ultimate tourist squad, considering they have never played like a single series in North America, where at least like, at least Oplano, for example, had to go through an open qualifier. Like these guys got invited basically on like a nepotism invite for the strength of their brands rather than their accolades as players.
Yeah, and like the thing is too is like Extrasalt is just like they're a well-oiled machine at this point. You know, they've been playing enough games in Europe to like have that essentially a boot camp experience. And then you combine that with the fact that like I really liked the Gaming roster, so it's a little bittersweet to see that get the way that got blown up, and then see where like Dumao is where he is right now on that roster. But yeah, I think Extrasalt takes this one probably 2-0.
Probably 2-0, unless we see some like Brazilian magic where once they face NA teams they come alive. And I mean, it is possible with like the likes of Barton and Dumao and Lado, but I don't really see it as I don't really see it at this point. This is a team I do kind of want to see actually settle in NA and like try to get into Premier, because I do think like if they had more time in NA, I could like warm up to them. But like I said, just as a tourist squad, I'm kind of disappointed by their inclusion, maybe over something like Party Astronauts, for example.
Yeah, I think if Godsend came back to NA and they played in Premier, I would be much more willing to accept them into this RMR event in a much more open arms kind of manner. So
because I was kind of thinking about it. It's like people don't consider like Team One to be like a Brazilian team anymore. I think we've sort of accepted them into our ecosystem because they've been here for 3-4 years now. Or say with like the likes of Sonic and JT, we don't consider them just visiting South Africans. Like they've kind of come up in our scene, and we value their presence as players.
They're part of the family.
Yeah, they're part of the NA extended family.
Yeah. So second matchup next, we have Triumph versus Oplano. So this is actually a rematch of what we saw in the first qualifier, where Oplano actually beat them to get in. So this is actually going to be a pretty spicy matchup, I think. And this one's kind of 50-50. Jeff, do you have which one of these teams would, with your gut feel, take this matchup?
Oplano, I think.
I unfortunately have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, because as dicey as Oplano look right now, I do still think. I mean, you still do have like legitimate star caliber level players in the forms of Penny and KNG and BSM. So even if maybe like Lucas and Leo Drunky aren't necessarily like they're not in amazing form right now after being on the bench for so long, I do think Oplano represents like just a higher level team. And now I don't think Triumph like will necessarily lose this, but I don't know. For me, it just seems like Oplano are more of like a coherent roster, while I think Triumph are still sort of working MOTM into the team.
Yeah, I feel like Triumph is still kind of searching for what their identity is as a squad. Because I mean, we're seeing them. I mean, we'll touch on this a little later, but we're currently seeing them struggle in one of their ESEA Premier matches.
I will say I'll never put Stigzul in a corner. Like I do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this, and it's probably closer to like a 60-40 or even a 50-50. It depends on like what Stigzul took away from the loss and what he is able to like build on. But I don't know. This match is honestly just a bit of a toss up for me. But like my gut tells me Plano's just looking more like explosive right now.
You know what? I'm gonna go home team. I'm gonna go 2-1 Triumph. I'm gonna kind of go back on my statement.
I'm gonna go close.
So
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go close 2-0 Plano.
All right, cool. So you can hold us to that later, everybody. So next up, we've got Bad News Bears versus Team One. Bad News Bears looks too good.
I think Bad News Bears fucking rocks them. Yeah, because
2-0.
the issue with Team One is I think they're still kind of like waking up from like their European where they just got bullied around.
European shell shocking.
They're still trying to integrate X and S into the team, and I think this is the most mortal Team One's looked in a long time. I know they, what was it? It was this week. They dropped a map to the new Mythic lineup, which it can happen. Flom and the gang are liable to have a good game, but I think Bad News Bears are just on another level right now.
Yeah. I don't think I really have too much to talk about here. It just looks like Team One is a little bit uncomfortable, kind of returning to form. I mean, they lost to did they lose to a main team? Or am I thinking of Imperials?
I think you're thinking of Imperial. I think you're thinking of Imperial losing to Vicious Kitties, but I mean,
Team One did have to come through in the second qualifier, so I feel like I'm forgetting a matchup here.
Here, I'll look it up for you. You just keep talking for 1 second.
All right, perfect. So I'll move on to the second matchup here, or sorry, the final of the fourth matchup here. This is a double elim bracket, just to clarify for everybody.
Oh yeah, they lost to the French Counter Nature lineup.
Oh, oof. Yeah. Okay. So,
but that's just. I mean, it was a 13-16, so it's like that's just online Counter Strike. I don't know if you can really read.
That was best of one,
I don't know if you're
right?
really allowed to read into that. Yeah, best of one. So
yeah. So
I don't. Who cares? I don't think that's really like a relevant data point.
Yeah.
I think if Koi was here, he'd probably remind us to like not look too hard into best of one against like ultimate onliners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that I 100% agree. I think that's you can't read too much into that, but of course it's still like if you're fallible on one map, then that still is a sign. But we'll see.
A bit. We'll see. I guess. Yeah. Now, last matchup we have Pain Gaming versus RBG. Pain. Yeah.
I'm going with RBG on this one. I think the addition of Clasia to this lineup gives them a serious chance at actually taking this matchup.
Now, see, I want to say that too, but like my only problem is that when you your heart tells you that the Clasia Hex combo is like incredibly strong on RBG, but the only Pain just doesn't lose to North American teams right now, and I feel like RBG would have to like put up with a really special performance to win, and it could happen, but I don't know. Pain are just kind of invincible right now unless it's against like Extra Salt or Bad News Bears, and that's kind of what I'm thinking with this is like there's only a select few teams in this qualifier that can take them down.
I believe in the magic of the Panthers. I believe in the red, black, and
gold.
Do
you have any like proof for that, or
I have no proof. I have no proof. This is all heart speaking. I'm gonna go with their performance against Liquid back in DreamHack Open.
DreamHack Open. Yeah, no, that's not good evidence at all.
I think that they will pull off a good performance. This is a tournament that this is like what you're talking about a major spot. I think they show up. So. That is. I
would love for them to sign up because I do think like Clasia and Hex are like the next generation of NA talents who will probably wind up in Triumph after, let's say, like D-Wills and Cynic get poached by EG and Liquid respectively. But like, it's
okay, that's fair.
Maybe I could say like they need more time. I don't necessarily know if they need more time. I just think I think RBG are like on the threshold of being one of the teams who's like fighting to be like the tier 2, like in the tier 2 NA right now. But I just don't think like they're ready to cross that threshold.
I'm just gonna go with my heart on this one. I will say RBG, but
RBG 2-1 or RBG 2-0?
2-1.
Okay. Fair enough.
2-1. I'm realistic. I'm realistic in my delusions. But okay. So that kind of covers the CS Summit 8 qual that starts on May 14th. So that we are rolling up on that pretty soon. And we'll go next onto our roster changes / org changes. Biggest one, or not biggest? The
biggest, definitely.
Biggest. This is biggest. Yeah. So MOTM to Triumph.
I know we talked about it earlier, but I mean, ultimately, this is an improvement over Viz, right? Yeah, no, I don't even need to do like the condescending right, like to see if like there's a counter argument.
It's experience
it's experience, it's firepower, it's he could probably contribute a bit of mid rounding because he's played with a bunch of.
To be clear, I don't. This is not a slight at Viz.
No,
I think that Viz is a very good player, and I just don't think he didn't really fit that well into the Triumph squad. It is still a little weird. I don't think we ever got a goodbye post from Triumph. So
and mind you, we've never got like a hello modem post either. So there's definitely something going on in the Triumph camp.
Yeah.
Ever since they like honestly, ever since they got rid of 60, it's sort of been like it kind of makes you wonder about like their overall commitment to CS:GO and like where they're at financially, because it doesn't really seem like they're like going out with all the stops to like welcome Modem into the team and present us as like a new generation of Triumph, because this is ideally like the end game lineup for Triumph, right? Is you have Cooper, who's an NA star, who's stuck around from like the old generation. You have Cynic, who's the new generation. You have Modem, who's like who's just like a great player and who was recently on Cloud9, and you have Sheikh Zula, who's regarded as one of the best NA IGLs right now, and there's no fanfare, but this should be like the prophesized Triumph lineup that that finally helps them break back into, like, this should bring them back to like
this tells me that they're like, I don't know, because we got an announcement for Tacticus right when he left, but this just tells me that I don't think they're done. I don't think that this is their final overall roster. Because like if they're like they're an org that's typically not bad about making those kinds of posts. This is out of character, so I don't know. Something's going on over there, and I don't think we're seeing the final Triumph. Yeah, like this is.
Well, but you'd have to say like the only player you could replace is fucking B Wales, and you'd feel sorry for him because he's like Viz if Viz did nothing wrong. What?
I wouldn't replace B-Wills.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you think, like, Viz didn't do anything wrong, like, B-Wills really didn't do anything wrong. So, like, you couldn't replace Sheikh Zula, right? You couldn't replace Cooper. You couldn't replace Cynic. So, either this is the final form, or they're going to make a really dumb roster sometime in the future. So...
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see, because like right now, I can't think of any like free agents that come to mind that would be a really worthwhile injection into this team at the price point that they have. But then again, who knows? Maybe they'll pull something out of their ass. We'll see.
I mean, mind you, like if you look at like Triumph as like a financial institution, when was like the last time? I don't think they've ever acquired a player that wasn't a free transfer. So that should probably tell you all you need to know about like where their head's at. Because let's see, so Sheikh Zula, free transfer. Grim, free transfer from Bad News Bears. Hecatus, free transfer. Asuna, Curry Jr.
Yeah.
Bungie, okay. Ryan, B-Wills, free transfer.
I think you've made your point.
Yeah, so like every player they've gotten has been from an org that doesn't have buyouts, or from like a team that isn't an actual org. So that kind of tells you like Triumph have gotten a lot of upward mobility out of basically what has been very cheap players that they've just kept gambling on. And so I feel like it kind of tells me that, I don't know, like there's been all these rumors circulating about whether Triumph are going to continue like through 2021 in CS:GO, and it kind of tells me that like this team is like a bargain for them, and if it ever stops being a bargain, then if they ever get to the point where they're like, okay, well, we need to start actually buying like good players, I think that's like when we need to start getting worried.
Right, because I think Triumph needs to get to a point where like they're winning cash cups consistently, Like that team needs to make it worth it for Triumph for them to be able to invest really anything back
Oh, those
into
are coming
it.
back next weekend, so we might, we might.
Yeah. I'll be covering it, so I'm gonna try to cover some Cash Cup stuff. So
we may finally be able to they might finally win a Cash Cup if like Bad Bears is busy or something.
yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll see like a first timer like RBG maybe take
Or
Cash Cup.
or Imperial or
Please,
Oplano.
Nothing against
or
them, but
Godsend or Team One.
You're terrifying me right now. So okay, well we have 10 minutes
Not
left.
that that Oplano would even play a Cash Cup. Like they don't get out of fucking bed for less than like 20K a month. So I have my doubts.
We have 10 minutes left, so we're going to speed through the rest of these roster changes, and then we're going to get into some of the match recaps that we have for last week and for this week, or at least what's happened, and give a few previews.
For meta context, we are filming this on Tuesday, May 11th, because our recording schedule is absolutely awful. So we are going to cover week 1 and half of week 2. Yeah, so let's talk. Exotic seems to be back in the mix at ChocoCheck after being a sub. And I can give some context on this. I've heard that a couple players like Rec don't necessarily want to play anymore, but at the same time Exotic doesn't want to play, but he's agreed to help them until they can like settle their roster. But then they don't want to use Tropical or like Shrek or whatever as ringers because they're not really good players. And I know they I know they're like talking all this like mad shit about how they're a super like professional, responsible, serious roster, but bringing Exotic back into the fold is just like another one where it's like, okay, like this is the default fallback strategy for all of these lineups when you can't find a fifth. So it's like, does Exotic want to be a pro? Does Exotic not want to be a pro? Are you guys actually gonna what's like the general strategy here? Who, after you play your 5th match, you can make more roster additions and play around the roster more. Like, what's the actual grand strategy here?
Yeah, because I mean that roster, like we said before, like they have potential to be a playoff team. So it's like where did they go with that? Where they can continue to go there and still look like a squad that looks like they want that pro league spot. So
yeah, definitely, and I think. We talked about this before, but like shedding the ChocoCheck name and maybe like getting rid of some of those roster riders who are from the match fixing era would be like good first steps for them. But
yeah,
them embracing the ChocoCheck name again is just like weird, like you said.
Right. It's just a bad marketing move. That's all it is. It's just bad marketing.
I'm sure all these players have been orgless before. Like just reach into your hat of your like previous team names and just pull something out. Like
yeah, surely if a team can call themselves Team Censored, you can come up with something
like
good,
surely you have something you can use in its place. Okay, now we have 2 quick ones we're going to cover real quick. GGPR have completed their roster with the addition of Sharky, who comes from PDHM. Thoughts? Do you know who Sharky is?
Not really. I didn't watch too much Advanced last season.
Okay, well, he played in Premier like 3 seasons ago on Thunder Logic. He's just a serviceable player.
That kind of sounds a lot like what GGPR has been recently.
This is the most serviceable lineup ever.
Right.
Like the players aren't like bad, but they're not like amazing, So I'm not gonna say like, oh, Sharky's shit, bad addition, but I'm not gonna be like Sharky's amazing addition. Like they're now playoff ready. Like
GGPR is just a big meh right now to me.
He'll probably be a point, like he'll end the season with like a 0.95 HLTV rating, which is like not bad, but it's not setting the world on fire. And so, speaking of that, it's like PDHM in Sharky's place at Gran Turismo, and he's like a less serviceable player, but still a serviceable player, if you know what I mean. Like he's liable to put up like a 0.85 rating, which is amazing, but it's not like
seems like a trend.
Yeah, but it's not like awful, and it's like this team isn't very good, and they have an open player in their team. So Turismo's probably like a catch at this point, but they're not a very good team, and the fact that they've just been getting like handed beat downs by other teams in the division is like kind of what we should probably expect for the rest of the season.
Tells you what you need to know. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, unless they do something like what Levitate or X Levitate, or otherwise known as Team Censored, did, and they've kind of like tried to rebuild themselves into something really serious. You know, I don't know if we'll see. We're going to need to see that to kind of like build out and have some development and improve. But with our remaining 5 minutes and 45 seconds, we'll go into our match recaps for this past week. So, seeing as this is a topic that I really love to cover, and Jeff seems to yell at me every week for wanting to talk about matches, here we go. So in week 1, we had Recon 5. They had a bit of a scare against SKDC. That was a 2-1. They did win that matchup, but that was kind of terrifying. And I'm going to go through all of these before we talk about them, just so we make sure we cover it. But so week 1 was Recon 5, 2-1 SKDC. Secret Club 2-0 over Big Chillin'. ChocoCheck 2-0 QC Clan. Secret Club 2-1 over ChocoCheck, Triumph 2-0 over Big Chillin', and Team 1 2-1 over Mythic. So my big takeaways are SKDC is a little spooky, considering that they were able to take a map off
I think
of
that's
Recon
kind
5.
of dubious because we don't know if Hexa and RMR are going to be permanent additions to the lineup, and even then, it's like this was a brand spanking new Recon 5 playing a brand spanking new SKDC, and I'm assuming it's just like I didn't watch the match, but I'm assuming it was just two pugs just crashing into each other like an FPLC game. So like,
kinda, yeah. It was definitely not strat heavy, and Recon 5 was playing very dirty. So I mean that kind of tells you at least where we should. You know, it tells us a little bit more about Recon 5 than I think it does about SKDC, honestly.
yeah.
But yeah, that's like SKDC came out with a little bit more energy than they did last time around, but Recon 5 is also coming out with less. So that we need a reference match in order to kind of tell where those teams are at. So against a roster that hasn't made any changes. So with the Secret Club match, Big Chillin'.
Expected. I think that's like kind of what we're expecting. Same with ChocoCheck versus QC Clan. Expected result. Secret Club versus ChocoCheck. That was like actually an interesting match. I mean, it was kind of dirty.
For map 3.
No, but map 3 was just a complete blot. Like I think that was some of the worst Counter-Strike I've ever seen. You casted that match, right?
Yes, that was. I started on because apparently we had no ESEA partners on that match, so I hopped on for I think on map 2, and like it was just
it was fucking diabolical. Like map 3 on Mirage, it was 16-2. It was just the most like diabolical Counter-Strike I've ever seen from.
That was not good. Secret Club beat the living shit out of ChocoCheck on Mirage. That's pretty much my only takeaway from that matchup. Secret Club just kind of looking pretty good. So Triumph 2-0 Big Chillin', expected. Team 1 2-1 Mythic, expected, but also Mythic
fair fucks. Like they did
fair fucks.
The fair fucks all around. Like Lex performed better than I think he was. Sluggy performed better than I thought he was going to. I mean,
honestly,
Mythic probably good first showing for their new lineup. Now we're gonna hop into week 2. Team 1 2-0 censored. Expected. Did you cast that one?
Yep, I actually just got off casting that best of 3.
What do you think of censored? I didn't give a chance to catch the match.
They looked really good. They were the biggest thing that I'd take away from them is that they didn't look like they were scared to take fights against players that they knew were like, you know, it didn't look like, you know how if you play up against a team that you know is better than you, you'll be scared to take one-on-one duels. They did not look scared at all in any of their duels. And it really just came down to them making lots of little mistakes, but overall they felt pretty good. And they almost won Nuke. That almost went to a third map. And if I think we went to a third map, I think Censored wins that best of 3, because Team 1 is on a 6-loss streak on Mirage right now. So Censored.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off right here real quick because while we were filming, the Triumph versus ChocoCheck game was ongoing, and I have a result to report.
Okay.
ChocoCheck 2-1 Triumph.
Yikes.
That's a fucking rope. See, that's a fucking ropey result from Triumph right there. That's like the shit where I'm like, that's a shit right there where I'm like, okay, that's why I choose a Plano, because there's obviously something's not like I don't think teams of Triumph's caliber should ever be losing to ChocoCheck, considering ChocoCheck just kind of hugs around. Like,
I mean, hey, maybe this is a result of ChocoCheck taking the season.
I will say they do have a real like. Stamina is a real IGL, and he's a serviceable, like he's a top advanced mid-tier premier IGL, and he's probably like the best addition to that team. Because if there's one thing ChocoCheck / Reverse / Bloodstone cares needed, it was a real fucking IGL that wasn't like a make-believe fiat IGL. Like, so I guess fair fucks to Stamina, but also if Exotic's leaving, then this doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. We have about a minute left. Did you have anything you want to say about Extra Salt, Recon 5, or not really?
I'll just cover those games. Third Impact got a good win over PDHM. I think that's good for them. It was a beatdown on Inferno, so good shit for Third Impact getting their season started off well. Extra Salt 2 over Recon 5, completely expected.
It was a beatdown. I had a chance to catch it. It was just like Recon 5 were unfortunately just out of their depth entirely. Now we're going to talk about, we have one more day of matches this week. Which one do you want to see most?
Honestly, this one's really tough because I think there's 3 of these matches that are really good, and I'm just going to run through the 3 interesting ones. PDHM, Velaz. I think Velaz takes that one. I think those are 2 teams where Velaz has to prove themselves. Big Chill and SKDC. I think Big Chill has a chance to prove themselves. TI and Mythic. I think Third Impact has a chance to prove themselves. So.
And then you have Extra Salt versus QC Clan, where Extra Salt is going to give them like a Wet Willy and a Purple Nurple.
Yes.
And like,
it's going to be a bit of probably a SmackDown.
Yeah, so. It's going to be a SmackDown, most likely.
All right. Well, that's the show for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in via either YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or any of our other platforms. Be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. That really helps us grow and do all our things. And yes, I've got to do the stereotypical YouTube stuff now. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We will have the fish back for next week. This has been the Max Runs 30 podcast. Have a good rest of your night.
Good night.